And we are live. Welcome, 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 everybody, to another episode of Building Wealth and Building Business with the Legacy Wealth Capital Group team. I'm with my partners, Sean and Kyle. How you guys feeling this evening?
Good,
Great,
outstanding,
great.
outstanding.
Peachy.
We got Kyle in the office tonight, y'all, so we shouldn't have any internet hiccups like we did last time.
I'm at the home front, no hiccups.
No hiccups. So, for the people listening in tonight, we got a pretty good topic for you. And it's all about becoming or how to become an overnight success. And the question then becomes, can you become an overnight success? Is that real? Like, what does it mean to be an overnight success? Because we hear it, we see it, many people talk about it, but it is a way. So, the answer to the question, can you become an overnight success, is a yes and a no. Because we know that there's work to be done to build your business up, but the overnight success, being an instant millionaire, being a instant billionaire, is overnight. And so tonight we're going to discuss how that happens. Because when we were talking about Microsoft earlier this week, Microsoft, when they went public, they made 10,000 millionaires and 4 billionaires overnight. And so while it took time for Microsoft to build, and let's use that as our case study, when they went public overnight, there were instant millionaires, instant billionaires. So, Kyle, Sean, either one of you want to jump out and start with how does that process work and what actually happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started off. Oh, you want to start off, Cal? I started. So
Oh, yeah,
basically,
yeah.
what happens is, you know, like for example, on Microsoft, right? So they would raise capital, and once you raise capital to get all of the different places where you want to be as far as expansion, acquisitions, building up the company, then you set an IPO date. So now, once you have, let's say the IPO date is, I don't know, January 2025. Okay, let's just assume, right? So now, um, what the CEO's job is to build up the company, right? And that's with any CEO, whether you're private or public. Your job is to build up the company. But when you're going public, what happens is a lot of investors are willing to invest in that project to help you build up. Now, when you do the IPO, you know, the IPO creates excitement a lot of times from investors, and investors invest in the IPO, which causes the IPO price to rise up. And then when they go public, let's say you go public at $50, and obviously if $100 or whatever, and obviously if you have 50 million shares, just do the math, you know. So that's how millionaires and billionaires um, are made. Now, I just want to say this real quick: you're doing the same job whether you're private or you're public, right? And you're doing the same job whether you are building up to be going to an IPO and whether you're just a mom and pop's shop. Because Tyrus, right? You have a business, another business. Your job is to uh, make sure your revenues are more next year than it is this year. Is that correct? Well, Bill Gates,
That's
he thinks
correct.
the same way, right? He thinks the same way. So it's literally no difference, but one is on the public market and one is a private market.
Yeah. And when I can just give you a real life scenario. So what happened to us is basically, we did a reverse merger. So when we did our reverse merger, that day it came out, we sent out a press release, went out to PR Newswire, went out, everybody saw it. So we went from being a private company, and then they saw that we were doing a reorganization. When the reorganization was done and it was approved, bang, the next day it was overnight. So we went to basically being par 0007 to $1.79 a share. So what happened is that day that we went public, I got a call from Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs called me and said, "Hey, look, I want to come up. I want to take you out to lunch. I'll be up there tomorrow." I said, "Okay, no problem." So they flew up from Atlanta. We sat down and talked. And I said, "Well, hey, why are you here to see me?" And the gentleman said, well, I deal with high net worth individuals. I said, okay, why are you here to see me? He said, you went public. So he knew that basically, our stock went from par 0.0007 now to $1.79. And guess what? We had 20 million shares apiece. So you guys do the math.
Okay. So we're gonna slow it down because there's some terminology that you're using that we're not familiar with. So I'm representing the people.
Okay.
I'm Tyrus. I have my private digital marketing agency. I have my company. Right now, I'm like Sean said, I'm building. I want to hit 7 figures. I want to hit 6 figures, whatever it may be. I am building that company. I'm working every day, working with a team, finding clients. I'm doing all the work. And right now I'm battling. So you're telling me that as a private company right now, I can go out and instead of fighting the banks or bootstrapping, one of my steps could be to raise capital. And so we're not going to be able to give y'all all the details of raising capital. That's why we have Capital Raising Academy. But let's just say most of us are familiar with Kickstarter, GoFundMe, and some other crowdfunding platforms. So I could go as a private company. I come talk to you and Sean. You tell me how much do you want to raise. I say, well, let's just raise a couple million, 5 million, but I want to advertise. You tell me, well, start with a Regulation CF crowdfunding. And you tell me that's what GoFundMe is, basically. I can raise $5 million of capital to have to work with to scale my business. And in return, those individuals get shares. Am I right so far?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
You're selling it to them, so correct?
Yep.
Yeah, that's correct.
But I'm telling the investor that in X amount of time, I plan to take this company public.
Right.
I
So
might value.
basically-
Oh, go forward.
No. I was going to say, yes, right. You're selling shares with the idea of going public in the future. Obviously that's not the only exit strategy, but that's one of them, right? But basically, your job with the $5 million is to build up the company. So what a lot of people do is they go to banks, right? And sometimes their credit might be bad. So what happens? Sometimes a lot of times the bank will deny you. So what is your options? Bootstrapping, using your own cash? Well, there's a thing out here where you can raise capital and utilize investors. Investors will give you that money to help excel your company. And the exit strategy for that, you would exchange the dollars for shares. Exit strategy is to go public. Now we like to say, we'll look at a company, we'll say, okay, maybe 3 to 5 years will be your ideal situation after you have a capital raise and after you maybe make some acquisitions, maybe expand or whatever, but grow your company. And then maybe 3 to 5 years, once you've grown it to a certain point, now you can take your company public. And I want to add one more thing. There are different markets as well. So everybody's familiar with the NASDAQ, right? Everybody's familiar with the New York. Well, there's a bulletin board as well, but it's less qualifications. You have the pink sheets. So you have companies like Nestle. Everybody know what Nestle Crunch is, right?
Yep.
Candy bar. Nestle is a publicly traded company, and it's on the bulletin board. And last time I checked, it was $84, $85 a share. So just imagine if you're the CEO of that company and you got 30 million shares or 50 million shares. Do you think you're happy right now? Do you think you would be able to leave your grandkids' money, your grandkids' money? So this is what trust, when you hear people with the trust funds and things of that nature, like the Hiltons and stuff, this is exactly what they did.
I love it. So I'm raising the money. I'm using a Regulation CF crowdfunding. I might offer my initial shares 50 cents a share. So those early investors will purchase at 50 cents because that's you can do self valuations and you can go get your company valuated by someone else and they can set the value. I've seen both. You can go out and research and find it yourself. 50 cents a share, you might put in 10,000, you might put in 20,000. But the goal is to continue building that company over several years, 3, 4, 5 years. And then when you IPO, then you IPO at $10 a share. Well, everybody get your calculator because depending on how much you invested, to go from 50 cents to $10 is $9.50 in gain. Now, if you own a couple million shares, that's a whole lot of money. That's a whole lot of money. And then the value only goes up. I saw that when Microsoft IPO'd back in 1994,
That
they
was
IPO'd
87.
at 2087.
Yeah.
They IPO'd at $24 a share. Created 10,000 millionaires, 4 billionaires overnight. Now, Kyle, tell me how the janitor in Microsoft became a millionaire.
Well, not just the janitor and his secretaries. And basically, what happened is, you know, Bill Gates had asked him, "Can you do me a favor and don't take a Christmas bonus this year?" They said, "Okay, we'll give it to you in stock." So they gave it to him in stock. And when they went public, you saw janitors and secretaries pulling up parking in spaces with Ferraris and Jaguars because they were rich overnight. That's exactly it. So that's what you're able to do.
I love it.
And for a while, Microsoft's secretary was the richest secretary, what, in the United States or the world? Something like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All because they asked, we won't take a Christmas bonus this year. We'll take it in stock.
Yeah.
So some of you may be familiar with that. If you work corporate jobs, you may be a part of a employee stock option program. You may have seen these, and as you're building your business, your company, you really have to think about what's the end goal. Like, what are you working for? Because I think we have a limited mindset in what overnight success means. We know it's going to take years for us to build our company, but what does made it mean to you? A lot of times made it means I made $1 million and that's it. Or I made 3 million or 5 million. We're not even dreaming on the level of $1 billion or 100 million or 500 million when it's possible. Elon Musk they just showed that he's at 400 billion now.
444.
444
He
billion.
would be a trillion in the next probably 20 years.
Yeah.
You can't sell that much product. You can't sell that much coaching.
No.
You can't speak that much. You can't do this. You being in the company, working day to day, grinding it out. You have to build your company in a way that either you take it public and realize it's overnight success, or the other way you could realize and become an overnight success is to acquire other businesses. The Berkshire Hathaway method. Not only did he invest in a whole lot of stock in other companies, they went and acquired and merged and built up a conglomerate of other publicly traded companies. So it's all about thinking, what is the next strategy and how do I get in this game? Because we talk about it all the time. But Kyle, why do you think we are so gung-ho on investing in another company but not investing in our own?
Ty, this is a great question. Sean and I talk about that all the time. And when you think about your own company, most people don't have access. They don't know. So they don't know what it takes to get your company set up and positioned that way. So what they'd rather do is say, okay, well, let me just buy a little bit from this company. And they're always, most of the time, it's going to be the S&P, the top 500. Now, if you just follow what the top 500 do and you just invest what they're doing, you're going to be able to make money. But people don't realize you have the ability to do it, especially if you have your own company. All you got to do is just get into our class and we teach you, we go through and everything. But it's crazy because most people will just sit up there and think, well, you know what? I got to go to the bank. I got to get a loan. I got to get a grant because they write me a grant or something. Or, hey, look, you know what? I got to take a mortgage first or second against my home, or I'm going to bootstrap and borrow it from family members or whatever. But they don't realize, set the instruments up, the financial instruments that you need, and you get that done.
I saw an article earlier today I was reading on LinkedIn that said that venture capitalists lost $50 billion last year in investments because
Yeah.
they understand that they are looking for unicorns,
Hmm.
and for every company that they invest in, they're looking for one, just one to be a unicorn, which is a billion
Yeah.
dollar company.
Right.
$50 billion that they just, and they're going to do it again, and they're
Yeah.
going to keep doing it. So why not your company? It's almost as if, what are you working for? Are you truly looking for generational wealth, financial freedom? Because really, most of you have a glorified job. It's a business, but it's a glorified
Yeah.
job because it's just you, no team, no real funding. You may make enough to pay your bills, and if not, you're still working a full time job and you side hustling. What will it take for you to get out of that and to move into the next phase? Because it's happening around us.
Hmm.
And all you have to do is, they say, elevate and get into the new circle. But I think even with that, guys, we're not getting into the right circles. We may get into a new circle, but it doesn't mean it's the right circle, because even the new circles, what are they telling us? Start another business, start another business. You need 7 streams of income. Well, if you start the right business and take that business public, that may be the only stream of income you need. And then you could take that income and diversify it into other things.
Yeah.
What would you say, or let me ask this question from your guys' background, being venture capitalists, should every business make the attempt to go public?
I would
Well,
say,
I mean, I think. Okay.
you have to say, I would say
Go
real
ahead.
quick, every business should understand that it's meant to be sold. That's the first thing. Now, think about this, and it's in steps. So if your business should be meant to be sold, if you fall in love with your business, if you fall in love with, the idea of this is my business and I'm going to pass it on to my family and this and that or whatever, that's visions of grandiose. Okay, you got to be able to understand that every business should be meant to be sold. So if your business is meant to be sold and you know that from the get go, starting right out, do you want to sell your business as a private business, or do you want to sell your business as a public traded entity? Because what's the difference? If you sell your business as private, it's going to sell for 4 times EBITDA. But if your business is publicly traded, it's going to sell for 10 to 12 times EBITDA. So first of all, understand, create a business. It needs to be set up that it can be sold. And if you're going to sell it, you might as well sell it at the highest that you can get for it. And then guess what? Travel around the world, have a good time, and come back and start all over again. Go ahead, Sean.
No, I just think that, um, that's a good question, because if you look at Amazon, Amazon started out as a bookstore. Are they still a bookstore today, or are they morphed into other things? And guess what provided them the different opportunities? Capital. So they raised enough money, excuse me, they raised enough capital to say, okay, we no longer want to be just a bookstore. We want to sell products. We no longer want to be sell products. We want to get into shipping. We want to get into affiliates. We want to get into AWS. So all of this capital from investors, investors gave them money and they formed these different divisions, or they bought out companies in order to create a division. So I think all businesses have a possibility, but it depends on the CEO, because sometimes the CEOs, um, they hold the companies back. I believe that, if a company raised capital, because and I'll go back to last week. You said a question last week. You asked me a question. You said, "What's the billion-dollar idea?" So, what is the billion-dollar idea? Is your billion-dollar idea just to be a barbershop, or to have your own hair care product, to have salons all over the country, to be like the name brand salons and products? So,
Paul
what is the
Mitchell.
goal? Paul Mitchell. What is the end goal? So that's what I always ask companies, and how do you want to get there? Do you want to get there by just getting a million customers, or would you rather do it an easier route by raising capital and acquiring different companies? So,
You know, and I want everybody to listen and share this because this is the way. Now, COVID 2020 locked us in. It became the world of online entrepreneurship. Everybody wanted to be a coach. Everybody wanted to create a digital product, a course, and that's great. But nobody created real businesses. Now, the businesses that existed, the true brick and mortars, those that have legacy, they just innovated so they could stay afloat. Others created what I call their hustles, and they're not built on the foundation of real business principles. That's why it's so hard because you're not following the business practice system. You're following the get rich quick online. If I can sell this course and I sell it to 5,000 people, I'll be a millionaire. Well, now if you look around, and I want you to just go online, look at all of the people that were hot from 2020 to about 2022. Those people have fell off. You have very few people that's still in the online space that's blowing up. When you're thinking about your business and your $1 billion idea, it's all about how do I work smarter versus harder. It is infinitely hard to build a brand online. I work with people every day that think they can do it overnight because they're watching people, Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, that's been doing this for 20 years. They didn't just wake up and get online. And so the guru that's telling you that, and let me stop right there because Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins have funds of their own. So they acquire businesses of their own. They are into private equity and venture capital. Tony Robbins, that's how he actually made his hundreds of millions. It wasn't because he was doing personal development and coaching. We love him. We love the events, but his real wealth came from private equity deals and acquisitions. The real wealth from all of your billionaires, and I would say your people worth 100 million or more, come from acquisitions. They come from being publicly traded. And then if you notice, none of them go out and, well, they borrow money from the bank, but they will quickly raise capital for their next deal.
Right.
They leverage banks, but
Right.
they also leverage capital. And you can do that today with your business because all you have to do is have $1 billion idea. And I want you to take that idea. You don't have to have it in, it doesn't have to be moving. I shared this with Sean and Kyle yesterday. I seen a company, they make some kind of video game and you can record a video, it becomes a game. They lose $70,000 every month. They've been negative for the past 3 years, but they're still raising capital. They raised $2 million this year alone. And so even when you just have an idea, you can raise capital. You don't have to have everything together. You don't have to be profitable. Kyle, is Uber profitable today?
Uber's not profitable. Amazon lost money for 13 years. I mean, yeah, it's not, it's crazy when you think about this because when you're telling people, well, hold on, wait a minute. If I'm not making money, then how can I raise capital? That's not what it's about. CD Baby, all of those businesses back in the day, they weren't making any money, but they were just raising capital. Why? Because you raise the capital and then you take that capital and again, use some proceeds, do what you're going to say that you're going to do with the funds. Don't go out there buying boats and partying and doing things that get in trouble like Enron. Do what you say you're going to do with the funds. As long as you say you're going to do with your funds, then you can continue to keep raising money and keep doing press releases. And I want to go back to, Anthony Robbins for a moment because what people don't realize is that, Sean and I, we were in San Diego, and if you used to go up and drive down, Miramar Road, which turned into La Jolla Village Drive, I mean, you used to see this big building right up there to the coast, and it said Robbins Research. That was Anthony Robbins' building, Robbins Research. And guess what? I share with everybody, you should have a research and development department. If you have a business, you should have I don't care what business you are, you should have a research and development department. Why? Because you can constantly be out there going, looking for new ideas, new things to be able to turn around and be a part of something. Sean and I was at an event in Vegas. They don't do it anymore, but it was called Channel Partners. And I remember that we were out there and Microsoft was there. And right next to Microsoft was this phone that they had, this new phone that was coming out, and it was called RIM, RIM, RIM technology. Anybody know what RIM technology, what phone they had? I'll help you out. It was the BlackBerry. It
Yeah.
was the first version of the BlackBerry. And Sean and I were sitting out there, we're like, wow. And I ended up buying that phone. It was the first didn't look anything like the BlackBerry now. But think about the name of the company, RIM, RIM, RIM Technology. And they just continue to keep developing and developing and developing. Unfortunately, they lost out to Apple because they wasn't paying attention to what was going on. But that Microsoft booth that we were in and we were watching, they had this big old space. We were looking at it, and we're like, "Well, Microsoft, isn't that Windows? What are they doing with this right here?" And connected to it was Scientific Atlanta, and it was a device. And they said, "Yeah, you're going to be able to basically be on your phone, and all of a sudden the doorbell's going to ring, or you're going to be able to sit up there and look at your kids while they're sitting down there and say, 'Go to bed, turn the TV off, go to bed.'" We're like, "What?" You're going to be able to see all this stuff. And so I'm like, man, what are these guys smoking?
What,
But
20 years ago at least?
what was that?
What, 20 years ago or something like that?
Yes, it was crazy. And even for us to be on here, people think the Tyrants, you're talking to us and they think, oh, well, this is overnight. We've been in this game over 30 years. It ain't overnight. We just now starting to get recognition. Why? Because of social media. But other than that, it ain't overnight. We have been in this game for a long time and still here. So we're just blessed to be a part of it.
I love it. I love it. And for everybody that's joining us, because I see the numbers increasing, the question was, can you become an overnight success? And the answer is yes and no. No, because it takes time to build your business up. The answer is yes, because if you build your business with the intention of going public and you sell those shares into your company and you're selling them at X amount, when you IPO and go public and you open up at a amount way greater than what you sold them, that's overnight. When you IPO, the next day is overnight. So you could become an overnight millionaire, an overnight billionaire. We've seen it with Facebook. And what I'm finding is we look at these companies and we call them unicorns and we think about, oh, how difficult it is. It's not really that difficult. The process is very simple. Is it easy? Can everybody just jump up and do it? No, because most people don't have the vision or the dream to do it. You don't want to do it. You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about how do I get the next dollar to pay my next bill, when you should be thinking, okay, how do I get this goal? Because what I'm also learning, and one of you guys mentioned it earlier, it's the same work. It's the same work to earn 100K a year that it is to earn $100 million a year. It's just the goal and how you're focused on it. And when you watch, we got to follow. We love to say follow the blueprint, success leave clues, and all this stuff, but we don't do it. The people that we follow online, the gurus that have their we try to figure out, well, how is Ed Mylett worth $350 million or more? How is Russell Brunson worth $100 million? How are these people? Are they selling just software? No. They're not just speaking. They're not just selling software. They're not just where we see them online. They are investing. And whether or not they have taken their companies public, they're investing in publicly traded companies. So they own enough shares in that company. So you may say this. You may say, well, Tyre, Sean, Kyle, going public ain't for me. I'm just going to buy shares. Well, maybe you build a business where you become an angel investor, where you invest in companies who have a dream of going public. That way, You buy enough in that company and it goes public, then you're an overnight success.
Exactly right.
And so there are different ways to think about this thing, but you got to think about it instead of getting up and doing the same thing you did last year. So I want everybody to put on their goal. Like we're getting ready to go in 2025. What are your goals for 2025? For your business, for your life? What do you want to be? How much income do you want to earn? Why? And don't limit yourself. I love what Myron Golden says when people ask him how much money you want to make, he says, I want to make as much as I can. How happy do you want to be? As happy as you can be. How healthy do you want to be? As healthy as I can be. Don't put a limit on it. And then I know I heard them, Kyle, they saying, well, all they talking about is money. All they care about is money. Well, to make any significant change in the world, especially for those of you who want to make transformation and you want to make impact and you want to give back, think of all these nonprofit organizations out here that are struggling. Everybody asking for money.
Yeah.
Well, if you take a company public, you can give that money. You can make that impact. You can sign the same giving pledge that Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and now I think Robert Smith has signed it. First black person, I believe, on the list. Now you can do the same.
But you know what? One of the things that I hate to put it like this, and again, somebody came to Sean and I one time, and I'm just going to put it out there, Sean. I'm going to tell him, why do all of these companies have a profit and a nonprofit side? The big companies. But yet, we as a people, we got the nonprofit side. We don't have the profit side. We got the nonprofit side. But yet the big companies got the profit side. And oh, by the way, you know what? We're going to have to start a nonprofit. And what is that for? And guess what? This is the reason why they have those nonprofits. And these folks don't understand. When you hear all these millionaires, don't get mad the next time you hear these multi-billionaires say how much tax they pay and they said zero. Don't be mad because we're going to give it to you tonight. All right? That's why they have the nonprofit, because whatever they would be paying taxes on, they shift that over to the nonprofit side. Let me help you once again. You might not have caught that. Whatever taxes they owe, let's say hypothetically you got a company and you did $1 million, all right? And now you got to pay what? $70,000 in taxes. Well, go ahead. Take that $70,000 and shift it to March of Dimes, United Negro College Fund, UNICEF, whatever, multiple sclerosis, whatever, okay? Then guess how much taxes you'll be paying?
Sean, I believe you talked about this before about the salaries and how they use their shares and what is taxable, what's not taxable as far as how this may be when they go to the bank. So talk to us a little bit about how they utilize the wealth they have in the stock to leverage loans to, I guess, not escape. I don't want to say escape, but to minimize their tax liability.
So, we always ask, how come these companies, we always ask, how come like Microsoft paid, 6% in tax? Well, it's because basically if you have a company or if you have shares, right, shares is basically like currency, right? So that means you can go to bank, leverage your shares. So basically now the bank loans you money, you're not taxed on loans. So how much are you really paying in taxes? If I'm getting zero salary, but I'm worth $1 billion, and I give the bank, let's say 50 million to buy $10 million house, and all they're doing is just loaning me the money. It's like collateral, right? They're going to loan that money. They're going to say, okay, Mr. Timur, would you like the house in white or purple? Whatever, right? So now you go and move in your house, make your mortgage payments. You make your mortgage payments through your company. So now you're not paying no taxes on that loan, so to speak, because loans are not taxable. Now, of course, they're trying to reverse it, but It's not going to happen this administration. And one more thing I want to kind of touch on, because this is one of the most common objections regarding taking your company public. I don't want to get my company taken over, right? I mean, we hear it, Cal and I, we hear it all the time. And we hear it we hear it from like professionals, accountants, to startups, basically. We hear it all the time. And I look at it like this. This is how I have to paint the picture. If you're selling 20% of your company and you go public with another 10%, so now you got 30% out there, and you and the company own 70%. 30% cannot overtake 70%. You don't have one investor that have 30% or 40%, 50%, and now he can buy up all the shares. That's how it happens. But if you're selling, if you have 70% of your company, 30%, there's no way 30% is going to take over 70%. So it's virtually impossible, right? So it's just a lot of people that don't know about how publicly traded companies operate. And I'll give you another scenario. Jeff Bezos, he owns what is it, 7%, Kyle? Something like that, 8%?
Yeah, it was 13%.
9%,
Now it's kind of like
9% of Amazon. Yeah, 9% of Amazon. So that basically means that 9% is worth 300 million, something like that. 300 billion. So
Yeah,
somebody
billion.
will have
Put
to
a B
come
on
up
there.
somebody will have to come up with all these billions to buy up all the shares in the float to get more than it's not going to happen.
That ain't happening.
So, yeah, that's why he retired and he, cash in a couple shares, pay his taxes on it, whatever, and lives his life. But it's just a big misconception regarding publicly traded companies. It's one of the best investment routes out there. And I just want to say one last thing, Tyrus. You have all of these people, these podcasters and people on the internet. They're talking about different stocks and invest in this and invest in this. You're going to get rich. You're going to make money. You're going to do this. You're making pennies compared to the publicly traded company. Pennies. So it's like they will tell you to invest in another company, which increases the net worth of someone else. Why not invest in yourself? Why not talk to these podcasters and say, listen, I have a publicly traded company. Bring people to my company. Promote your company. Promote yourself. It's like Tyrus said, the effort is the same. So don't worry about investing in other people's company. Build up your company. Take your own company public. Sell your own stock.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny that you talked about the making pennies. I believe, and I'm welcome to be fact checked. Anybody can fact check me and bring me the truth. But I believe I was reading something that Robert F. Smith wrote before he started Vista Equity. He said that I think it was Goldman Sachs he worked at. He said that he did a transaction, did a deal, and he made 5 million, 3 or 5 million, but the person he did the deal for made 200 million. He said that he was on the wrong side of the deal.
You know what? It's funny sometimes because that's exactly how the process of going public, in my mind, shifted. We were actually sitting down with the gentleman who used to be a stockbroker. And we was a stockbroker. He said, look, he realized I have to get on the other side of this, not being on this side of the table, but get on the other side of the table. And when he said that, I was like, wow, it rung, wait a minute, he's exactly right. Because we were doing venture capital at the time. So we were doing venture capital. We were raising money for all these other companies, public trading and everything. And we're like, well, hold on, wait a minute. As we started seeing it, we're just as smart as them. The only difference is sometimes when you sit at the table, you have to close your mouth and listen because the good Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. Because as we were sitting at the table, all of our other buddies that were around us, they weren't paid. They were happy with the funds that they were making. Sean and I, we were looking like, hold on, wait a minute. We can do this ourselves. We already know how to do it. All we got to do is set up the structure. And that's the reason why people's business get taken over, because they don't know how to set the structure up to get it done. But that's what we teach people in our class, how to set the structure up so you don't get taken advantage of.
Yeah, we have a company right now that we're helping out, and they're looking at issuing roughly around 50 million shares. The CEO is roughly getting 50 million shares. So that basically means all he has to do is promote it. And I'm just saying, right? Let's say he's not a big promoter, but can you promote it enough to go to $2? $2 a share? Can you promote it enough to where your income goes from your 50 to 100,000 to 100 million with just $2 a share? And if your volume is up, you take the shares to the bank, or some of them, they're going to see your volume. They're going to say, okay, we'll loan you money on that. You're worth $100 million. That's just little effort. $3, excuse me, $2 a share. And if you look at it like this, right? And again, I'm bringing up race because it's a fact. When we went public, when we had our company, we took our company public, there were 14 African-American companies that was publicly trading, right? Now it's less than 7. So, but we have more access. So something's off. Something is really wrong. And Cal and I, we believe it's the access. And that's one of the reasons why we're talking to everybody now, because it's like there's opportunities out there, guys, to grab it. You can raise capital and fulfill your dreams. Build your company to any way you want to build it. And all you got to do is use investors' capital. I'm not using my capital, but the investors will say, Tyrus, I like your company. Can you, will 250,000 be enough? Sure, it'd be enough.
Yeah, it's real quick, because on that, what you're saying is so important, because we talked about the fact that, hey, look, you know what? You can basically do this yourself if you have a business. I'm not saying it's easy, but you can do it, because the level of what you're going to be able to gain, the knowledge, the experience. I remember one day I was talking with a guy, and I told him that we could take him public for this amount of money. And he was like, what? He didn't believe. He got on the phone with his attorney. You know what his attorney said to him? He said, you know what? It's worth that price just for the experience alone, even if you don't take your company public, just to be able to be there. And that's what we do. And we teach people just the experience alone to be able to get the knowledge and the know-how. Whether you push forward or not, we can't do that. We can't push, but we're going to sit there and tell you, because it just makes sense. That you have more tools now, more access now. It's kind of like we talk about. Remember back in the day, you had the dog and the pony, and you had the stagecoach and the horse. But now you got a jet that can fly. Well, that's where we are. When Sean and I did this, it was the stagecoach. It was the horse and buggy back then. Now you guys got the rockets. You know what I mean? You got to go to the moon, and yet you're acting like you don't have the opportunity. You don't have access. There's less minority, and matter of fact, not only none of them right now are women, whether it's minority or not. None of them are women that are publicly owned. But yet only 7 minority-owned public traded companies with all the access you have right now.
I was listening to a podcast, and actually it was a mashup. It was several different people, but Eric Thomas was on there, E.T., and he said something. It was him, David Goggins, and somebody else. It was one of my days where I needed to hear the hype. I needed the energy. I needed the motivation. So I had put them on there, because when you listen to E.T., David Goggins, and I forgot who else was on there too, they'll make you run through a wall, all the way through the wall.
Hold on 1 second.
Yep.
Let's justify that David Goggins is a United States Navy.
Oh my God. He just had to stop us and say that. Anyway, what he said that really hit me was, they were talking about excuses. And basically he was like, you ain't there because you ain't there. It ain't nobody else's fault. Right. You're not where you want to be because you're not where you want to be. You are the one who controls it. And I say that because we just need to open up our minds just a little bit. We are quick to celebrate or say how somebody else blew up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why ain't you blew up yet?
Yep.
You ain't blew up because you ain't blew up. The same way that we talk about GoFundMe and everybody and their mama go to GoFundMe, we know that it's huge for all different types of fundraisers, whether nonprofit organizations use it. We know that people go there when funerals and they can't afford to pay the cost because they didn't have insurance. Now I know Kyle is in the insurance industry. He can go all day talking about
Woo!
insurance. I don't want to go down that road, but I agree that we got to do better. But the same way the platform GoFundMe exists, you can do the same thing. And I ain't gonna let the cat all the way. Well, I'm gonna let the cat all the way out of the bag. We're about to have a conversation because we are about to create our own platform or partner with a platform to do our first capital raise. And so in the very near future, you will see us on this call right here saying, you know what, here's a link. You can invest in our company as we get ready to take this path and journey to go public. Because we're not going to just sit here and give you information. We want you to follow us through the journey. And I'm going to say this real clear. If you don't want to take your company public, don't. But you can invest in ours because we are going on this journey. And when we become that overnight success, whether it's 5 years, 7 years, when it's boom, we want you at least on the journey with us. You can be there, whether you're doing it yourself or you're following someone that you know that is. So we don't have to continue looking at GoFundMe's and Kickstarters and Microsoft and Facebook and IG. We don't have to look at these people that have done this and say, wow, lucky them. No, lucky us and lucky you because
Right.
you can do it too. And we're going to walk
Yeah.
through each step of the way of how this is done and document it. We'll document live. When we file the paperwork, we'll drop the link and tell you this is how we did it. When we start taking on those first investors, we will show you, hey, here, look at these investors. Because you can go and look at it online. You can see the SEC filings. So none of this information that we're telling you is secret.
Right.
You can go do it yourself. You just have to be in the mindset of this is what I want to do. I want to understand how versus just saying, wow. We do that a lot. Wow. That's great. But we never do it for ourselves. So the challenge for you today is figure out how you're going to become an overnight success. Figure out what that looks like for you because your level of success may be different from mine. My level of success is hitting that $1 billion and moving forward, just like the others, because I believe we can do it. And there are many people around us that have done it, and they're continuously doing it. From the election to today, Elon Musk added $44 billion to his net worth.
Did it
He didn't
right.
just make 1 billion. He made 44. And guess what? He went to bed and got up at the same time.
Right in front of our eyes. Right in front. And
Yeah.
you know what, Tyrus, I wanted to say something about that too, because see, we are the ultimate consumer. There has to be a mind shift. Okay, not only just a mindset, but a mindset shift. You got to shift. All right. It's got to be a paradigm where they understand. Think about it. Right now, GoFundMe's been around since 2012. President Obama signed the Jobs Act, jumpstart our business startup. That's what it means. So that's when GoFundMe was created. Now, let me ask you a question. What does GoFundMe look like? Who runs GoFundMe? We don't know anything what they look like, who they are, but you know we know. Oh, you know what? If you got a funeral, go ahead and put up GoFundMe. That needs to change. And if we can make that change and that paradigm shift, they need to be thinking about Legacy Wealth Capital Group just like they think about GoFundMe. If they need to get some funding or whatever, I got to go to Legacy Wealth Capital Group because those guys are going to take care of us. But right now, where are they going to go? A funeral, they need to get something done, whatever they're going to go to GoFundMe.
And I know.
Yeah, but real quick, do you guys realize GoFundMe takes 30%? Right off the top. 30%. So let's say we say, okay, Legacy Capital Group will only take 15%. And now we get all people going from GoFundMe to come to us. Go ahead, Sean. Yeah, go
No,
ahead,
no, I
Sean.
was just saying, these, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So these GoFundMe's and things of that nature, that's basically a $5 million raise. But for people who are looking for a lot more capital, like for example, Elon Musk right now, he's raising, or he was raising $6 billion, right? There's a regulation called 50, which gives you an unlimited raise. So basically, what that means is, if you're looking at rate one, if you want to raise $1 billion, you can utilize a 506c for that. You want to utilize, you want to raise 100 million, you can utilize a 506c for that. And the good thing about a 506c, it gives you the ability to advertise. So now you can advertise to everybody in the United States that you're doing a raise. So that's one of the benefits of, again, there's levels. You got the crowdfundings, you have the other small ones, and then you have the big dogs, which is the 506Cs, the 504s, things of that nature.
I love it. And we get into all of that and more. And what I want you guys to do is I want you to test it first. I want you to go to this site. Sean and Kyle took a company public. They took their company public years and years ago, and they detailed and documented exactly how they did it. So I want you to go to this site, webinar.capitalraisingacademy.com, and check out the webinar that walks you through how you raise capital and the process of taking a company public. And from there, then you will see, okay, I need to get in the community. That way you can come and learn how to raise capital the correct way. And you'll learn more about the Reg CF and the Reg A and the 504s and the Reg D and all the subsets of it. And all the different ways that you can go public. Because when I first met Kyle and Sean, I only thought about the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. I'm like, how do you get there? That was my only idea of what public was. I didn't know all of these other markets existed. I didn't know anything about pink sheets and OTC and any of this, because that's why we think we can't do it. Because when you go and Google, how do I get on the New York Stock Exchange?
Right.
Oh, you need a couple $100 million. It's like, well, I guess I'm not going there. But when you learn that you can start at a lower level and work your way up, then it changes things. Just like we had a gentleman on the call one night that said, oh, I work in alternative investments. If you come into my company, you got to be worth 500 million before you come in the door. Well, if you don't have 500 million, you just walk away. When you go to a Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, the wealth bank area, like I started Googling and learning, like I didn't know that JP Morgan had a wealth division. I didn't know that Bank of America, Citigroup, they all have these private banking sides for high net worth individuals that you don't just walk in the door and be a part of. You have to actually have the money. And they don't tell you how to do it. And now we're bringing that here because I'm learning that if you just look at it, I want to go back. I'm going to go back because I'm getting all over the place. I want to go back to an idea, but I want to share this with you. Right here, right now, we're telling you that we can help you go and take that journey. Now, you might ask that question, well, how did Bill Gates and Jeff, how did all of them know? Because they didn't just, some of them had money, but not all of them had the millions to get into it. But you ever notice they all are on the West Coast? A lot of those guys come from Stanford. They know about they're in these incubators and these groups. That's because they are creating those spaces of access. And so whether or not they have the money,
Access.
they got access. Claudia said they are reducing their requirements. 250K can do it now at JP Morgan. Who got 250K to drop tonight? If you got it, go for it.
All right. Give us 250K, and okay, we'll do it. We'll take care of you. No, hold on. Give us just 200.
249.
Right. We'll get it done for you.
And I like that.
But nine times out of ten, if somebody is investing that type of money in JP Morgan, the company they're investing in is not on you guys' level, basically, right? These companies are already, they already, you know, have, things going on. They've already probably pretty much done the seed raising, the growth raise, things of that nature. So when they invest in 250K, they're investing in like more likely an IPO. What we do that's different is we help companies that are seed companies or companies that are ready for the IPO. We help those as well. But don't get it confused, guys. The 250 will go more towards an IPO, whereas 250 that you get for investors now, they will go to build your company up.
Yeah, that's good. What I do want to go back to, and we were talking about really the seats at the table and what side of the table are you sitting on? We went from sitting at the table being the worker, the employee, and then we heard about being the owner. So we sit in the ownership seat at the table. But you got to move seats. I want you to think of this thing as a table with a whole lot of chairs. And when you're sitting at that long table, you got to listen, like Kyle said, listen to who else is talking and what they're talking about. Because there's always another side. I used to hear people say, man, they playing the game in the gym, you ain't on the court. Well, some people not even in the building.
Exactly.
And some people not even in the state. Some people not even in the country. So get in the country, get in the state, get in the building, get on the bench, get in the game. And then look around and figure out who not in the game, but they at every game. And they're sitting in a seat of ownership. Now, I've been tracing this, and I'm not going to tell everybody tonight because I don't want to give them too much. But I'm finally realizing who make the most money to do the least amount of work. And I'm going to share that with you guys on another night because I don't want you going and trying to do that because that does require you have some good capital behind you. But it goes back to what Robert Smith said. He made $5 million, but the person he helped made $200 million. That's another level.
Yeah.
What level are you on? And are you ready to start taking the journey to move? That's all this is about. It's starting the first step and saying, you know what? I can do this too. Venture capital has always been on my list of where I wanted to go. Ever since Shark Tank came out, I wanted to be that. I wanted to be sitting in the seat, investing in other businesses. It was in my dream. You got vision boards? It was on my board. It was in my 25-year plan. Meeting Kyle and Sean helped bring that and collapse that plan because they had the knowledge that I didn't have. But then I brought a vision to them that brought them back. I think Kyle and Sean was on there. They wanted to educate a little bit and kind of ride off in the sunset. I was like, nope, we going to do a last hoorah. And we're going to show you guys what the overnight success looks like. So put it on your calendar. It's 2024. We're getting ready to go in 2025. By 2030, 5 years. By 2030, you're going to look back at this episode and you're going to say, them guys became an overnight success. Wow. But I hope that you are on that journey with us and do it yourself. And so, but we've been here an hour. We're going to get everybody out of here. Any last things? Definitely want you guys to go to webinar.capitalraisingacademy.com. Look at the process of how they took their company public. I'm on there just saying a little couple things that ain't much important, but what they're saying is very important. And then from there, we want to invite you guys to join the Capital Raising Academy when you're ready. so you will understand the process of raising capital and watch us do it. Because we're literally having a conversation tomorrow to get started for our own company, Legacy Wealth Capital Group, and we're going to raise that capital. And we already know what we want to use it for. And we already know what the journey is. So you can do the same. Last things you guys want to share before we get out of here.
Yeah, I'll start. I just want to really just kind of finish off. You guys might be asking, well, what happened with that meeting that you had with Goldman Sachs when they came up there to see you? And just so you guys know, what happened is the gentleman came up, we sat down, we talked, came to my office, we went across the street, and we went to sit down at a restaurant and had a conversation. And so while we were sitting there and conversating, I'm looking at this young man, and I'm like, wow. You know, he tells me a story about how, hey, he deals with high net worth. And I said, okay. And then he asked me a question. And the question that he asked me, and Tyrus kind of goes back to what you said, because he said, how'd you go public? And I'm like, what? Don't you work at Goldman Sachs? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, and you're asking me how we went public? Because those seats that you're talking about, there's only certain people that have access to investment banking. He was on a retail side, so all he knew about was that side, but he didn't know what it would take to be in investment banking. And I said to him, I said, this lunch is over. Thank you. And left. But I did get a free lunch.
What about you, Sean? What you got for us?
I, yeah, I would say, like Tyrus mentioned earlier, maybe going public isn't for you, right? Maybe you just want to stay private, but you still can raise capital. And if you're interested in raising capital, go to capitalraisingacademy.com, click on the schedule an appointment to talk to us. That's capitalraisingacademy.com. But for the people who are on the fence, why not you? Why? Why not you? You deserve it. You deserve to take your company public. You deserve to issue yourself 30 million shares, 50 million shares. You deserve it. You just because you're working the same effort. You're working just as hard to promote your company and build up your company. Why not promote it and build it up when you're going public and create a nest egg for yourself, your family, your grandkids, and things of that nature. That's all I want to say. Again, capitalraisingacademy.com. We have Academy on Wednesday nights where we teach you the lingo. We teach you how to raise capital for yourself, if that's something that you're looking for. And we teach you all of their different instruments. Again, capitalraisingacademy.com. Click on the schedule. Talk to us live in person or live on the bridge line. Take care, guys.
I love it. And we have a live event coming up in March. Just put March down for live event. It's going to be in North Carolina, so you will have to travel there. We won't be doing it virtual. We're going to be live and in the flesh. And we're going to show you all the things that you need to know in order to grow, scale, raise capital, and exit a business, whatever that looks like. So just write on your calendar, March. And as we get closer to the date, you'll receive emails. We'll publish the dates. You'll see it on social media. You will know, but we really want you guys in the building because as we take this show on the road, as they say, one of our goals is to help 10,000 companies go public. And so in order to do that, we got to get out from behind this screen and get into the public face. So that's all we got, guys. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you next week.
Next week.